the killer in Halloween.
No.
Come on, it's your favorite scary movie, remember?
Some cliches in horror feel so unavoidable that it seems like they must have begun with the genre itself. But we have to thank John Carpenter's seminal 1978 classic Halloween for popularizing today's most foundational themes, even if Carpenter didn't necessarily intend to. Most notably, the final girl trope, or the idea that only one of the movie's females can live to the end, and death by sex, related to the final girl, which shows sexual activity being punished by death.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. For instance, number 1, you can never have sex.
Carol Clover coined the term final girl in her book Men, Women, and Chainsaws to describe the female survivor who outfights and outlasts the killer. For Clover, while slashers like Halloween do sexualize violence and present male anxieties or desires, they also cross over the traditional gender binary via the final girl, who is an intriguing union of the masculine and feminine. The final girl tends to become more masculine-looking by the end of the film. She uses a knife or some other phallic-shaped tool to stay alive, and most importantly, she's the only girl in the story not obsessed with sex. Let's look at Jamie Lee Curtis's final girl, Laurie. She's physically the biggest of her friends. She's the only girl who spends the night babysitting kids instead of getting laid, and she eventually fends off Michael Myers with a sewing needle and a kitchen knife. She lives while the others die. Laurie is mocked for her lack of sexual experience.
Scared another one away. I always said you'd make a fabulous Girl Scout.
But in the end, virginity is what saves her life, if mainly because she has time to notice anything other than sex.
I want to see Jamie Lee's breast. When do we see Jamie Lee's breast?
Jamie Lee was always the virgin in horror movies. She never showed her tits until she went legits. That's why she always outsmarted the killer in the big chase scene at the end. Only virgins can do that.
Clover argues that by forcing male viewers to identify with a typically young female, the final girl turns the voyeuristic, male-oriented horror genre into a feminine experience. The sadism of identifying with the killer blends with the masochism of identifying with the victim. We first see the final girl through the killer's gaze. In cinema's usual tradition, the female is the spectacle while the male is the spectator. But the final girl reverses this, Clover writes, when she assumes the active investigating gaze, making a spectacle of the killer and a spectator of herself. The gaze becomes, at least for a while, female. Not all agree that the final girl trope is fully progressive, given that she often has to be saved or helped by a man, and it's been often imitated in flat, cardboard iterations that fail to match the complexity of Clover's analysis. Halloween wasn't the first film with a final girl trope. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Black Christmas, both released in 1974, predate Halloween, but Carpenter's film made it a widespread staple in horror, driving it home by coupling it with death by sex. Most of Halloween's murders are juxtaposed with sexual acts. Bob gets killed just after sex, Linda soon follows, and Annie's killed on her way to go have sex. The film opens with young Michael Myers killing his sister immediately after she has sex. Halloween established the suburban landscape as a prominent setting for slashers, mocking the assumed security of its smugly uneventful environment, and it set up a theme of psychosexual obsession, which would carry into other slasher franchises. The slasher genre as a whole is fueled by this sexual fury, but these days, death by sex isn't localized to horror. Even the James Bond films use it with regularity. So why punish sex? Horror presents and confronts our deepest fears. It's not necessarily saying these people deserve to be punished for sex, but Halloween dramatizes the backlash the kids and we fear for what we do. John Carpenter says he didn't write Halloween with an intentional Christian message, but horror has deeply embedded Christian roots. Scares are often based on the dark fantastic, from ghosts to demonic possessions. The Christian associations carry over into subgenres like the slasher, where an overly durable, larger-than-life killer punishes teens for behavior socially regarded as taboo, premarital teen sex. There's something supernatural about Myers. He survives multiple gunshots, he's described as not a man, and he kills one of the kids dressed in a ghost costume. Carpenter also argues that the story isn't explicitly punishing sexual activity, saying the other teens are killed because they aren't paying attention. For Carpenter, it's about the revenge of the repressed. Because Myers can't be sexual, he kills those who can. So you could say the film is about the fatal dangers of repressing our sexual urges. The revenge isn't just against teens being sexual, it's also the revenge of the weird kids against the normal kids. Laurie lives on both because she's as repressed as Myers, and because she's also not a normal teen. They're both outsiders, just on different ends of the sanity spectrum. Whether intentionally or not, Halloween ushered the final girl and death by sex into the mainstream. Despite criticisms, controversy, and conversation about the messages they send, death by sex lives on in and outside horror, while final girls continue to win and outlast.